Yeah, we are.
Good morning. This is Quandra Gaines, and welcome to Community Connections, Resources, and Gardening. Today, we're going to have Will, my partner in crime now, and we're going to talk about a variety of things today. Um, as you can see, there were times when I have been on Will's show as a guest, not as a guest, but as a observer. And we talked about a lot of different things, term limits for Congress and delegates, and a slew of things. So today, Will, welcome. Good morning on this
Thank
beautiful,
you.
humid, hot Saturday morning.
Ooh, you ain't never
Um,
lied.
so we talked about, well, we did mention to one another that we wanted to talk about term limits, and we were talking about the January 6th hearings,
Mm-hmm.
which I personally think was a ploy by the Republican Party because this is about election year,
So
and they wanted to get back into office. So they
you think
said, "Let's."
the ploy is the January 6th hearings or the ploy?
It's the ploy because
Oh,
it's midterm elections, and they want to keep or increase their seats in the different in the House and the Senate. Because at this time, I believe that the Democrats are only 5 seats ahead. Is
as
that?
far as the polls are concerned about the races
Mhm,
in the 18th.
mhm.
Okay.
So they didn't do anything with our former president Trump the whole time he was there, and I believe, well, in my opinion, I
Mhm.
thought that the January 6th hearings was a way of them acting as if they're going after him, when in reality they really weren't.
It's interesting. I watched all the hearings and I've been kind of following this, and I have a different take on it. I think what has happened is that Democrats are generally, as a party, weak fighters. They do not fight well. They are the upskulls. Like they'll give you a burn of verbal burns. Like, look, and you're stupid, and then they don't understand why people still follow you. It's like, well, stupid people follow stupid. So just talking about stuff isn't going to do it. I believe that the January 6th hearings or the January 6th has multiple. It's a win for Democrats on multiple levels. So on the
Mm-hmm.
first level, like we actually need to know what the hell happened. Like we just at a very basic level, we need to know what happened. The other is that they have been able to demonstrate that the Republicans are the party of anarchy, the party of destroying democracy by just giving them an opportunity to talk. Like
True.
you give them opportunity to say, "Hey, I did." Like think about this: the Vice President of the United States, they literally swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, not just not commit crimes, but to defend the Constitution. And this Bama ain't even showed up yet to say what actually happened, and his life was on the line. So I look at it as like the Democrats were going to start doing this. They were going to do the hearings anyway, because it does make sense politically as well. Because now
Mm-hmm.
you're like Louis Gohmert, actually in Maryland, Andy Harris. I
Mm-hmm.
found out this last one that Andy Harris, East Congressman from the Eastern Shore, he was in the cuckoo meeting. He was a crazy cuckooer. Like he was
Mm-hmm.
out there. So now I didn't know that before these hearings. So that puts for me at least, that puts another Republican seat in jeopardy. And I want to be clear of two things. I'm not suggesting that the only reason they're doing the January 6 hearings is to get back at Republicans or to expose them. That is one of the incredible benefits. The second is, I think what I've seen of Democrats over the years, I think they are doing a much better job here. And I'm going to tell you, it bothers me to say, but I think it is because of Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, because they're bringing these Republican fighting tactics to the nice, proper Democrats. And so the Democrats will be like, you jab, twist the jab. Huh, this does work. Twist the jab. Okay. Oh, this is so cool. And so they're like, they're so, and when you see them, they're so excited about it. Like, and we said this and it, and what they try to do, what I've experienced is that many Democrats tend to be like we think of traditional academics. They take a step
Mm-hmm.
back, and once you see the picture, you should be on board because it is intellectual, it makes sense, it is good. Where Republicans are, win. What is the part? What is the topic? Don't care. Win. What are we going to do? Don't care. Win. And so,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's Michael comes to see you too. What's up, Michael?
Hi, Michael. Good morning.
But so they don't. So Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger is bringing that kind of Republican fight, like the Lincoln Project. The Lincoln Project is because Republicans do a damn good job of dirty fighting. Like they do an amazing job at it. And so I think that that's what's happening. The midterms, just because of the way that our system works and the trends, the party not in power tends to pick up seats in the midterms. You throw
That's
on
because we don't vote. We don't vote. I think that
absolutely. Well, we don't.
As voters, we don't understand the importance of voting for the general election, but we also need to vote for that midterm election because that's when the seats.
You mean you mean the midterms and the presidential? Because
Right.
Be careful with and the only reason I'm saying that is because people get concerned about terms because the general election is the November election, the primary election is the one in July. And so in a state like ours, our jurisdictions are pretty much locked down. So, there's only a few districts where it's a competitive race, whatever. Normally it's like whoever wins the primary wins the election. And the primary election is this Tuesday. So make sure that you not only go vote, that after you vote, don't just be like, here's the money, now what happens? That's kind of like having a sex partner, you put on a condom and they just lay there. No, thank you. No, thank you. I need you to get active. Look at your civic engagement like your sex life. You just gonna lay here, I voted, I showed up, so now you need to make me get it good. No, ma'am. I need you to throw it back. I need you to get up in there. I need you to volunteer. I need you to contribute. I need you to be an active partner in this political process. I need you to fucking run for something. I'm sorry. It's Saturday. I turn my curse words off normally for the weekend. The weekend.
That's fine.
I'm gonna get it back down. I'm gonna get it back down. So yeah, that's my take on January 6th. And it's been written, and I've been watching it like an episode of Scandal. Like it is in like a reality TV show series.
Okay. So now I've been watching the different shows on BlackUSA.news and looking at the different candidates and I unfortunately did not participate in early voting. Like I usually do. I wanted to, I'm actually going to go to my new poll site, which is, I live in Northeast Baltimore and it's Sinclair Elementary School.
Yep.
And the last, when I bought my home in Northeast Baltimore, the last election I had already voted, before I had moved, but it is celebrated over here. It is actually, they're outside early vote. They're outside early in the morning. You see long, long lines and people are celebrating. Yes, we're going to do this. And I actually have a friend whose polling is very slim. Very, very slim. I don't care what kind of time of day she can get in there and out. And we were talking about it yesterday where she stated that the people who are running in her area, and she's over in the Waverly part, that she has heard nothing from them. Nothing. Not one thing. Not one thing. Nothing. No. She's gotten a lot of things in the mail, but no one has done any door knocking. Nothing. No one has communicated to her. And she's in limbo right now because she doesn't know who to vote for. The only thing she has to go by are their banners and the materials that they've sent in the mail. She doesn't know what they've done, who they are, nothing. And it made me wonder, are a lot of our voters, are a lot of people out here who are voting or thinking of voting feeling the same way? I actually get to see a lot of I've had the privilege of being able to see all who are voting knock on my door. And because of the district that I'm in District 2, they go out to vote. I don't care what's going on.
District 2, Councilmatic District, or
we are the 45th district.
Okay. You're in 45. I'm very familiar with
45. So I've actually seen everyone. I just don't see the signs and the literature, but you actually see people, hey, how you doing? And they know our names. They know our names. How you doing, Quandra? How you doing?
Some of that has to, well, let's not pretend that people are going to forget you readily. That's not going to happen. So once they meet you, they're going to remember that. So don't act credible on that one. But
well,
the
no,
other part,
well, I go to vote and I ask the questions. I actually had a young man who is representing Westmore. And he was phenomenal. He was phenomenal, and I love that his everything that he stands for. But the fact that he had these very young, powerful men and women out here, and they're zealous and they're passionate, and it made me think. I was like, oh, okay, that's the one I need to really be watching out for. I need to really look at. And I love what he's doing. I love the whole picture. So I do plan on voting for Westmore. I do. Now, but I do see some of the incumbents. One in particular, Stephanie Smith.
oh yeah, I love Stephanie.
Oh my goodness, powerful. At my former job, I actually got in trouble because one of the incumbent delegates had called my former boss and said that I was asking him too many questions. And it was funny, but my personal life. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you out there. It's like, yeah. He used to be my mentor a while ago, and he don't like a whole lot. Like, he likes questions that he likes, but like if he thinks you're asking him stuff that like it's not that relevant, he's like, okay, gotta hurry this up. What are we doing right now?
Yeah, but but all questions are relevant, especially when you're in public office.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
So, and it was really nice because there was a community project where they had youth, little children ages from pre-K up to high school. And they were a part of a couple of the associations in East Baltimore. And these kids were powerful. I mean, they knew their questions. They knew what they meant. And they were asking a lot of like Caitlin Young. They were asking him questions, and he was like very involved, and he was answering the questions, and they were checking it off. But sometimes I think incumbents, it's great that you're there, and I'm grateful that you're one of the most powerful men in the state. But you have to realize that you have new voters, and they do not know you. They don't know your record, and sometimes they really don't care. They want to know what you're doing for them today, not what you did before today. Whereas a lot of the new candidates are able to tell you what they can do today because they don't have a past. They have a future.
Right. And for me, though, it cuts both ways on that thing. So one, I want to clarify some questions because, you know, as people come over to my show, they're going to hear this a little bit differently. So on the morning show, we believe there are stupid and wasteful questions. We believe that certain questions are just stupid, but we also believe that we're the place that you come and ask the stupid questions because I'll tell you that they're stupid and I'll answer them. And I won't have you send you back out there thinking that you can ask this question to somebody else and they're just going to take you at your word. So I want to clarify that because I ain't want people to think I came over to your show and got all nice and humble and shit because that's not going to happen. So that's the first thing. The second part is in getting to know who's running. Like I had this conversation with my mom and she said something very similar. It's like these people keep sending me all this stuff. I don't know them. They only show up during election times. And I'm like, okay. But when have you called their office? What have you done to find out who they are, what their policies are? Have you gone to anybody's website or anything like that? Or are you waiting and putting the onus on them to come and spoon feed you their entire agenda and make sure you understand? It's like, because that's not part of the partnership. That is, again, you laying here like, oh, get it, daddy. Go ahead, daddy. Get it, daddy. Like, that's not what's up. That's not fire. And so we as voters, we tend to think like that. Well, all I have to do is vote. It's like, again, we wonder why they act like whores when we treat them like whores. I put my vote on the table, so go ahead and get me good. I don't really care because the reality is, in as much as they have not come out in certain areas, like in mine, people, and I'm not home that often, so I don't even know if they do come out. But if they do, they are doing it for them, and it's like it makes sense for them to do it for them because they want the job.
True.
But at the same time, one of the reasons that Black USA News has done a lot of this continuing coverage is because we don't have a lot of time to find out who they are individually. So you know what? Black USA News, we'll bring them together, we'll have them answer questions, and we put it out there. Because it is difficult to figure out all that's going on. Like there's so many things that are happening. There's so many rules. There's so many da-da-da. And so when people ask questions, especially when I'm talking to potential candidates, it is, what have you done?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? And give me some comfort that you will be able to do what you said, because if anybody can say what they're going to do. But my question is, what makes me believe that you can do it? If you're talking about, like, one of the gubernatorial candidates was talking about how, some of the things he's going to do, and what he was able to do is to back it up with, I've done this already.
Right.
I've done this already. So that means that for me, it's more likely that you'll be able to do it when you get in office if you've already done it before. Like Doug Gansler, he was on my show at one point, and like he's so funny. He said, "I don't know why everybody thinks that I'm a conservative Democrat. I'm really progressive." And I said, "You want me to tell you why? Because you look like a standard issue white guy. You look like politicians are us. You used to be, the head of the AG's office. I mean, not AG's, the chief law enforcement officer from Montgomery County. You used to work for the federal prosecutor's office. I was like, you look like the feds." But the difference with Gansler is that he had the resume in the community, in the hood. So it's one of those things, like, while you look like the feds, and if everything that I've ever seen about him would have just been the flyers and looking at his resume, he is the feds. But when you talk to this man and talk to the people he's worked with, they're like, no, he seems like that. He is a standard issue white guy, but he's in the community making it happen. Now, that's not enough to get my vote, because he said some other stuff about how he's going to come up and save Baltimore. And I was like, that's mighty white of you. You're just going to come in, you're going to come in and save us. Thank you. Because it wasn't like we were working here before you got here. Thank you, Mr. White Man, for coming in and making us niggers behave properly. And I know he didn't mean it like that, but if you don't know enough not to come in that direction, then there's some more critical things I can't tell you if you know already. And so, but the fact that, and again, even in that conversation, because he came to the show and we had this opportunity for back and forth, if all you ever see is the clips and all you're waiting for them to, come on and get it, like, then you deserve the lack of orgasm you get, the political orgasm. Your bills ain't getting passed because you just gave me your vote, and then you was like, gone. All right, I got your vote. Your vote only gets me into office, but your testimony, your constant phone calls, your letters and things like that while we're in office, that reminds me that you exist. Because let's not get it twisted. A lot of times as citizens, we only talk to them during election time or when something goes wrong.
See, that's the exact opposite for me. So, for instance, Corey McCray, Senator Corey McCray. Okay. I can pick up the phone. I can email Tamika. I can ask questions, and it's responded to real time. If she doesn't know, she'll say, give me a moment. I will find out. I love the fact of, like, for instance, well, I don't call her Councilwoman McCray. I call her Danny. I can pick up the phone. I can call. I can email. Her chief of staff is amazing. But the thing is that I want to have a relationship. I don't want to just have you in office. Why? Because for me, I need to see the person in real life. I need to see how they behave. I need to see how they interact. Reason why for me is if you're just an image that came to my door and I gave you my vote, and I don't see you in the community, I don't see you interacting, I don't see you doing anything, then that makes me feel like I just gave up my vote for nothing. I do want to see you at a community event in our neighborhood. I do want to hear your opinions or your suggestions, even though they may not necessarily, not everything gets passed, but I like having those updates. I love having those updates saying, yes, I did hear you. We did put it in. This is where it's at. In session, during session, this is where it is. We've generated a lot of other delegates or other senators on this agenda, what have you. I like that.
But what if they don't do that?
Well, if they're not able to, the communication, I mean, I get a newsletter.
I was talking about the communication. So, and I'll use myself as an example. Like for me, my anxiety, and especially when it comes to communicating with people, interestingly, that this is what I do. But when it comes to communicating with people on a one-on-one basis or making phone calls or follow-up, it becomes mentally overwhelming. And so that's one of the reasons I ask people about what have they done. Because again, I can tell you, like, you know what, Quandra, I'm gonna show up this morning and I'm gonna come through, blah, 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 and I could wake up with a headache, or I could wake up, or this may not have been something I've done before. And so I think I could do it, but then it's like, wait, you gotta do that too? You gotta do that? No, I'm good.
Well, I'm not saying that they have to. I'm not necessarily saying. I look at a person. I look at a senator or a delegate or a representative that's put into office. I don't only look at him or her, but I look at their team. I look at how they're the people that are right there with them, that are working with them, how they treat them, how they, and it's for me, I like a person who has a great team. Because see, the thing is that shows me I can see where that person has employed people in the community that live in the community that came from, that represent everybody that necessarily is in the community. So for me, I look at, like, for instance, I look at a person, if they're coming in, like I look at, like, for instance, I'm gonna use the example. When Stephanie Smith was first running. Okay. I'm looking at, she lives in our neighborhood. You know what I mean? Well, where I live, she lived in a neighborhood. Her children go to school in her neighborhood. Her husband works at, in an institution in the neighborhood. Very pleasant. You could see her in the store. Good morning. Good morning. I mean,
she's just cool people. She is
people. Just people.
Well, no, she is a little. She does, like, her personally. She does got a tinge of asshole on her,
but that's okay. But you see her. It's not.
But that's one of the things I like about her.
You can't find her. You can't find her. She volunteers. In the community. Her. You know what I mean? It's a relationship. You build. You can build a relationship. She's not standoffish, don't have bodyguards. She's just a person. Yes, she has aspirations. Yes, that's great. But it's great to see, because I sat on a couple boards. I was on the one of the committees for what's the school? Oh my goodness, I can't even think of the name. But the new school that was built in East Baltimore that was stated, no. Johns Hopkins, what is it called?
Yeah.
Right now. But I actually sat on a facilities committee and different things, and we did a lot of different activities there. And my child actually had the opportunity to be one of the students there. However, we chose another school that was much more beneficial for him. And the way that, how the community liked the school, didn't like the school, the limitations to the school. And we were able to kind of progressively move that school to opening its doors to other children. But she was part of that before she went.
Yeah, absolutely.
So and then when she did, I was like, oh, definitely, I'm going to vote for you. Whereas some people, like you said, for me, basically, well, in personal world, I'm an introvert, but I've had to work in community. Well, not had to. I love working in community, and that makes you push yourself to speak. But with the elections this year, especially with the state's attorney, I do know who I'm voting for. But then I look at the other people and I don't see them. I have no idea who they are. The commercials, it's kind of interesting to see two people. Some of the commercials make me wonder why. Why would those two join into each other when they ran a very dirty race against each other? Or some who don't. Like, for instance, I really, 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 the twins, the young twins, they are powerful. Caitlin Young and his twin brother. Oh, they're awesome.
Oh, okay.
They're awesome. I mean, one works for ACLU, and another one is actually a lawyer. But their presence, even when they're not in office, they're doing some things. They're doing community things. They're getting to know who they're represented in, you know, and that's powerful for me. I'm a very, how can I say it? I'm a very in your face kind of voter. If I don't think you've done anything, I have done that. I've actually done that with a former councilman who represented 13th District forever. And I didn't see him, but I would see him he would give senior voters cards. Oh, he would send them cards, Christmas cards and anything, all that kind of stuff. And they loved that attention. But what did he do? Nothing. And as a community organizer, okay, there were things that we did in the community, like for Christmas and Thanksgiving and back to school and all those different things at the Men and Family Center that he didn't even support. But every year he would come, how you doing? You gonna vote for me? And I didn't really know him because I didn't even know he represented me because I didn't vote for him. I never voted for him. When I seen his name, I would go for the next person. And basically, he had promised something that he couldn't deliver. And it was a week before the event. Here he is in Northeast Market. And I said, so are you going to do it? And when he said a person's name that used to work for him, I knew he was on vacation. So I knew this man was not going to be able to do any of that. So I said, well, no, we're in Northeast Market now. You can buy the turkeys now because you have to save face. Because if you don't, on my personal Facebook, I'm going to blast you out. Oh, but you can't do that. You can't do that. Yes, I can. Because your word was not your bond. You didn't honor it. And if you don't honor it here, and we're a community organization, how many other people have you lied to? He didn't even see it as a lie. He was just like, well,
can't do it.
I can't do it. I was just trying to get you off my back. So he had to buy the turkeys because he wasn't going to get me off his back. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I think that sometimes as far as the term limit, I know that new delegates and new senators have to prove themselves because they're not necessarily going to get anything past the first year because you have the incumbents in the Senate and in the delegacy that are not going to pass your stuff. You're going to have to make some compromises. You're going to have to vote on their side for certain things and all that good stuff. I understand that. But when you become too powerful to the point to where other senators feel that if they leave, they're not going to get it, their district's not going to get anything passed, I have a concern.
That's true. But here's the thing. That's the nature of the game. And, one of the arguments against term limits is the point that you just made, is that a lot of this stuff is developed from relationships and developed over time. So let's say you're a season. Let's say we go up to 20 years in Congress. Okay, let's say
20 years.
Yeah, retirement age, 20 years you're in. Whatever your term. So tell me what term limits you are. Like 8 years?
No, what? Well, I'm not going to say that because I do. For me, I have a like, for instance, like Dr. Rupersberger. Okay. I remember him because I'm from the county, so he was my county executive.
Yeah.
When I was.
Didn't he do like 3 terms?
He did quite a few. Yeah. But he was a county executive, and he stayed there for a while, and he made change. He made change with a lot of things with school, how things, transfer, all these different things. Then he moved on. Then he moved up. Just like Adrienne Jones, she was in the county. She did some things, and then she moved up. You know, yeah.
She's still a delegate.
No, but before she was a delegate, she was in the grassroots. She was in the county doing other things.
But she wasn't elected before the delegate.
No, right? But I'm saying before they were elected, they were doing the grassroots. They were doing the community, right. And people knew them. So when they said, "I'm voting, I'm going for this," we were ready for this because they had put in place other people or other, you know what I mean, so that that things could continue to move. For me, I like that because you've built a credibility with me on the ground level, so that when you say, "Oh, I'm going to go here," I'm going to follow you because I know your work ethic. I know your word is your bond. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen in local government or state government all the time.
So I think it happens more often in local and state government than it does at the federal level. One of the challenges with the positions that at least one of the challenges for me on the positions about their view is that you are right about the circumstance that we need right now, because the level of corruption and the level of focus has become so high. But what I get concerned about in the conversation about policy things to adjust out of whack situation is that we put in things that adjusted to the opposite side of the whack. And so my concern about term limits is, one, just even the conversation about how long it takes. So if I had to get a doctor, one of the issues is that the corruption that exists is too much. Two, we don't understand from a civics perspective about the operations of government and what's necessary. Because, if we took this conversation and moved it from politicians to doctors, it's like, doctors need to have term limits. Doctors should only work, 10 years, and then they need to move on to innovate, where they need to innovate new medical procedures. Because real talk, older doctors, I had the oldest doctor I've ever had. Like, he was so old, and he was still engaging me really from like a 1950s, 60s perspective, because that's where he grew up. But if we said that about doctors, everybody would absolutely say that's not true. So what's the difference with politicians? They need the technical expertise. They need the time in. They need the experience. They need the connections. They need to know. Because the purpose of government is the stability, not the innovation. True. And so the fact that you have people who know, don't call this person. Like, I remember when I used to work at the General Assembly, there were and so I used to be a staff person, and I used to love when the new delegates came because they were so new and didn't know nothing. They didn't even know the stuff they weren't supposed to do. So they would take me out and buy me drinks all night long and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, this is cool. But the more seasoned, and now drinking with staff. And again, that looks a little suspect on their part.
True.
But the more seasoned legislators invited me to their office and pulled out a bottle of scotch in the desk. And again, it is.
But that's a difference. It's a difference. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
But that difference came because they had been there long. So if you cut out, so one, the Constitution doesn't allow for term limits in Congress. But the second is that if you it is disenfranchising. Term limits are disenfranchising. So for example, watch the disenfranchisement. I'm sorry, if Obama had run for that third term instead of Trump, absolutely he would be president and we would have none of this shit we got going on now. But term limits took him away from us as an option. And so that's, and again, it is a more nuanced argument on that side, but it is this idea, like, if he wasn't term limited, we might have had a president who had already put the protocols in place for a worldwide pandemic like COVID. He would have already been on it. But they wanted new blood, and it's the same kind of thing. And the other part of it is that there are different types of people who need to run for office. Like, one of the things I really do appreciate about Stephanie Madden Smith is that she is both an advocate and a technical expert. That's right. But think about how rare that is. So what you may have, what I get concerned about, and I've seen before, is people who are passionate about community and focus on community at all else. They're as problematic as those who focus on the money more than anything else. Because what you end up doing on both of those sides, again, the pendulum shifts too far. On one side, you end up burning the community to save the money. And on the other side, you end up burning the money to save the community. And in both of those extreme examples, you ain't got no organization afterwards.
Okay. But okay, so I mean I can go by my experiences only.
Mhm.
Like for instance, Barbara McCoskey.
Mhm.
Okay. In the county you can see her anywhere. In the city you can see her anywhere. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I got to, as a child, like for instance, Artscape. I remember Artscape being in Lansdowne. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
I
Being
don't
in
know that.
Arbutus, and it used to be it would be a where you would have your artists, and you know
Mhm.
they would say the starving artists. However, you got to see spoken word, and these were people within the county and the city that would come, and you would see their art. You could talk to them up close and personal. And it was a small, it was a small event, and then it grew, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's in the city,
Yeah.
which was kind of interesting to me, um, because when it started, everybody was included, and you could drive right up to the artist and get your art and that and have that kind of conversation. Now it's great. It's
It's
over the top a little bit. It's more over the
it's
top,
more
but
commercial.
it's commercial. Whereas it was
Yeah, but again, think about this. That is what I'm talking about. The mix is like you really want community based, community engaged, but there's money that is absolutely involved in our system. And so what ends up happening is that for me, it is about trying to find the balance between mission and money,
mhm.
because having a moving those artists from Arbutus and Lansdowne or into the city meant that they would have more support from Micah and the University of
True,
Baltimore.
true,
They would have,
true.
but that's what I'm saying. It is this idea of trying to balance
I got you. And I
the
understand that
mission.
now. I mean, I understood that now, but that is as a child. I mean, I
I
understand because
understand.
it did evolve. It did evolve. So when I was a kid and when I became a teenager, it was bigger. And then when I became an adult, it became
Mhm.
the artscape. It was no longer, they didn't use the terms of starving artists anymore. They didn't use any of those things.
It
And
was
that's great.
rebranding.
That's great
Yeah.
because it did evolve from one location, one status to now. And that's beautiful. I like that. It's still community. It's just, it makes money.
And I think that the Artscape is a great example of the balance between mission and money.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of circling back around to the issue around term limits, one of the challenges is that the problem is that working with humans sucks anyway. Like no matter what you come up with, humans will make it stupid. So
Mm-hmm.
let's start there. So, those places that you have like we have term limits on governors and not term limits on delegates. Actually, Mike Miller, you talk about a level of term limit.
Powerful man, the Bill of
He
Rights.
he was he was the longest serving chair of a Senate in the history of the United States. But what
Yes.
that also meant is that he was ridiculously powerful. Like literally,
Mm-hmm.
back when they did the gun reform bills back in the 2000s. Well, sorry, was it the 90s?
90s.
90s, 2000. One of the things that he said was that he gave them that this is the bill that's going to pass. And and it was like, and they were like, well, what about, it's like, you could change it if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
You just won't make it past the Senate. And
Mm-hmm.
so I worked at the House of Delegates at the time, and to watch these people because everybody knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so people were just trying to basically fuck with them. It was like, let's do this amendment that actually makes perfect sense and everybody agrees with. No, we can't do that amendment. Why
Mm-hmm.
not? Da, 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 da. All right, what about this amendment that makes even more sense and only a few people agree with? We can't make that amendment. Why not? No, no, no. And it was just like that kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to talk about term limits and you're talking about reducing power, the issue is, for me,
Mm-hmm.
what we tend to talk about to achieve with term limits, I think should be achieved with income limits or investment limits. And so if you are going to be a full-time politician, then this is your job. You don't have external. If you're going to have external, because they don't make money and they don't make a lot of money in this job relative to their peers, because that's the other part about it.
Mm-hmm.
They are sitting in rooms with people who make millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. They see them as their peers. And when you start looking at somebody as your peer right here and your pockets looking down here, you're like, well, what's wrong with this picture? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're coming to me to get me to approve something so you can make $1 million and I'm sitting here on change? I don't think so.
Okay.
And then we make the job so important that if you don't vote, there is no reason to talk to you if I'm an elected official, because I only got 168 hours in a week. So if I stop by your house and your house is not one of the ones that says that you're an active voter, like if I look at the voting rolls and you have never voted in the midterms, I won't stop by your house, because there's a lady 2 doors down that votes in every one, and I need to spend that 10 minutes I was going to spend with you. I'll spend 20 minutes with her, because it ends up being about the practicality of the math. And that's the part for me where term limits don't necessarily help. I think they will help in theory if everybody was playing fair.
Okay. So there's a level. So as a child and as an adult, living in the county jurisdictions, to, understanding, like for instance, in Montgomery County. Okay. So there is a report card system with their people. Even in Randall County, there's a report card system. Baltimore County, there's a report card system. They basically will tell you don't vote, don't run. If you're not doing a good job, they will say something to you. The constituents are going to say, you know what, that's wonderful. You did do some things, but we want Johnny Bill to run. Because he represents what we want. And there's been, I know with something that's interesting to me is in the counties, there's community associations, which means it's a bunch of neighborhoods together and they have a voice. In the city, we separate neighborhood associations. And sometimes they don't play in the same playground. They don't like each other. So they don't work together. They don't get together and say, hey, I don't like you, you don't like me, but we are representing a body of people. And this is what they want.
Yeah, but because that's not acculturated in the city. In the city, you are your neighborhood. Like you are like high schools in the city. Like, like whenever somebody says, ask me, am I from Baltimore? I was like, well, I'm not from Baltimore, but my kids did go to Poly. Oh, okay, you cool, because that is an anchor point. And that's the thing that what we're trying to do is trying to find task-based or legislative or policy solutions to cultural problems. The cultural problem with the engagement and stuff like that happens because of the way things are working in the city. I mean, it kind of goes back to the concept of gaslighting, where the state creates a system that Baltimore City exists in and then blames Baltimore City for sucky outcomes. Well, if you gave us a sucky ice cream machine and we put all the ingredients in and sucky ice cream came out, well, that's not really, that is on us, but it is a shared responsibility. And so having that conversation, but also not just having people vote, but volunteer, contribute, testify, doing all of these things for activities, because it's funny because you talk about how they don't come to you, and your conversations about politicians not doing their job is different than a lot of other people because you are actively engaged. Please do not get it twisted that everybody who's saying or mimicking the points that you're making or supporting the points that they're not as engaged. They're again they laying there waiting for you to come and do it for them. It's like, I be laying there and I vote, I let you in, so I don't understand why you're not making it happen. It's like, you need to help me. I let you in. That's all I need to do is let you in. You got the equipment. You the professional. You're supposed to do it. It's like, no, this is a partnership. We abdicate our responsibilities in the representative republic. We're like, I gave you my vote, and then we come back. We come back around. We don't come back around until election day or something goes wrong, until the next election cycle. Then we don't do the evaluation. How is it that, if people, hey, we got another good morning. Oh, we got people coming through this morning. Odessa, hey, Odessa. And Rico out here too.
Wow. Good morning. Good morning, Virginia.
Yeah. But so we was I saying, so we get caught up and blaming them for doing the same thing we're doing. So they don't come around until election time, but you don't try to figure out what they're doing until election time. They don't send you material until they're ready to get your vote. But until your water bill comes out, you see something in the news, you don't even just check in. You don't know what's going on, not you necessarily, but people don't know what's going on in government until it comes out on the news. They're not, and so they want politicians to actively engage and get to know them but the reciprocity isn't even there.
Yeah, and that's the I see it as a blessing for me because I am from my family is from Baltimore County, and I have people in the Baltimore city, but they were very active. They were very active in who they voted for. It was a conversation. I mean, I can recall my grandmother, my aunt, really having intentional conversations. And even though, we do have Republicans in our family and we have Democrats in our families, we have independent in our family. And it's interesting to hear the younger generation talk about who they're going to vote for, why they're going to vote for them. And they're talking amongst each other. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's always been an intentional decision. It's been an important decision because we were very adamant in who we wanted to represent us. And believe me, they are emailing them and saying, look, why should I vote for you? I don't know you. Where did you come from? And I'm like, oh, that's mighty abrupt. And they're like, well, they want my vote. They got to work for it. They have to work for it. Yeah. So, and that's, even with my own children who are older and they're voters, they're asking questions and, well, I don't agree with that, Mom. I'm gonna vote for this person because he seems to be doing da 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 da. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's your vote. I'm not going to sway them because that's their vote. Most important, go out and vote. I don't care who you vote for. If you want to vote for Jimmy Bibb Bob, go ahead, vote for him. And then you need to follow up with Jimmy when he gets in office, or even before he gets in office. And let's say this, he doesn't get in office. You still need to follow up with him. Because although he didn't win this time, he may come back. And if you're going to be working with him or supporting him or whatever, because you want to vote for him, fine. I don't think that people pass that on to their children because even with the new voters, the new recent graduates of the last 3 or 4 years, I never saw anybody vote.
So why is it important? One of the things that we need to, the idea of how the country works in civics is so ridiculous. Most people have a general sense of things, but they don't do the research. It's just like a lot of people with religion. I know you're supposed to be a good person, but I'm not quite sure whatever the doctrine we use actually says about it. It is the same thing with a lot of these political advocates. One of the ones I love, the Daily Show with Trevor Noah. Mm-hmm. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was Samantha Bee. She sent somebody out to that NRA conference, the one that happened right after Uvalde shooting. And she had us a correspondent go out and talk to the people around. And they were talking, the Second Amendment is important. Absolutely. It's critically important to our way of life in America. So you believe absolutely I will die for the Second Amendment. And they say, well, what does it say? Oh, well, I don't remember all of it. It's only 3 lines, 1 sentence. What does it say? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know it technically. It's like, but you just literally said that it is the defining precept upon which your political visions and values are based. And you don't know what it says. Like, most Christians know John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Mm-hmm. Like, I know that because my faith is important to me. And that is a article of faith in my faith. Yeah, that is an article. So I know it. So if the Second Amendment is basically their John 3:16, then why don't you know it? Why? Because that is not required. We don't need to understand. We feel through our politics as opposed to understand through our politics.
See, and that's the difference for me, because I used to sometimes get feedback where, like, for instance, how you would do lobbying. We learned how to lobby. We volunteered for the Clean Water Act, all kinds of different things. And where we had to be out in that hot sun, cold weather. But we learned about what it was, how a bill was created, why it was important for this to be passed. Going down to Annapolis, going to Washington, D.C., and really seeing that interaction and all. And when I was in school, it's many years ago, we had civics. You know what I mean? That was a requirement before you graduated. You had to go out. I mean, it wasn't that you had, but it was expressed by our teachers.
But this is
Get
what
involved.
you are one of the reasons we don't have civics anymore.
Why?
Because you are an educated voter and you're trying to hold people in charge accountable.
But if you don't know where you came from, how can you express where you're going?
Is my point. That is the purpose of. You are the reason that they don't teach civics, because they taught you something and now you're trying to use it to hold them accountable and make them do what they said they were going to do. If you think, you see what I'm saying? Like, again, if you had a choice if I had a choice as an elected official of you as a voter and somebody who just liked my name as a voter, I would choose them. Why? Because just like Trump supporters, they're going to keep following me. It doesn't matter what you will change if I do some stupid shit as an elected official. You would be like, no, that's no good. Most of those people will never even know. So if I had a choice, like, I want educated voters, but the reality is ignorant voters for me are so much better. Because we make this, if we take the money out of it, and that's why I go back to take basically a vow of poverty to be a servant. To be a civil servant, to be an elected official, you have to sacrifice something, because what's happening now is that they're getting power and they got money. Oh, no. So if you're going to have the power, then you're going to have to give up the money. You're going to have like limitation caps, because what happens is that when you come from money, but when you make money, you're part of a different clique. One of the challenges that we have is that you have people who are in elected office who don't know regular people. When you've been rich 5 generations deep, then you have no idea what it's like to not be sure that your lights are going to come on for bill payment. And so you don't have that requisite understanding, or you don't even know people with these issues. So how can you advocate for them? I think the diversity becomes a big issue. You have to have so much, like, either you have to have a bunch of money or get incredibly lucky, or just outwork people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But damn near everybody shouldn't have to be one of her in order to get elected and support the people.
True. So that's why I really advocate for voting, but I really advocate for youth, for everybody to learn civics, to really understand what it means to the whole makeup of government. Because if you don't understand that, when you go and cast your vote, you're basically a blind person, not really knowing. Like, for instance, when you go and vote, they have all these amendments and people are questioning, what are these amendments for? Well, this is the time that you need to have that. You need to know why. Why are we sending money to the National Aquarium? Why are we sending money to this? Why are we doing this?
It's not them that they should know. They should have known that shit like a month before, because these things on the ballot, in order to get on the ballot, they had to go through the General Assembly. So this has already been hashed out. And again, it brings me to the point is that I think with term limits and things like that, I just think that the power will go differently. So now it's no longer going to be the legislator who's in office is the powerful person. It's the person back to the days of the old political boss. I get to decide, because the people who are corrupt, are going corrupt. That's going corrupt. Liars gonna lie, stealers gonna thieves gonna steal. Like, that's what they do. And so what will happen is we'll go back to the Tammany Hall days where you could get in easily. There was no real way, but you had to go through the boss. The boss wasn't an elected official. The boss was the community. And because there were, even with the elected officials being in, the term limits actually help. Because right now they're doing the same thing with dark money. These super PACs and stuff like that. So my thing is, the corruption is the issue, and coming up with these tools to try to limit the corruption. We need to focus directly on the corruption, not how long they stay in office. Is what the fuck did you do while you were in office? Like again, I believe part of the problem with police and with elected officials as well is the same, is that we give them too many benefits of the doubt. You have to be at a higher standard. You can't be like, oh, well, everybody else in the community does it. Like, oh, who else would have run into an AR-15? Nobody else put on a badge. You volunteered for this. Mm-hmm. You volunteered to help the community, so you should be held higher. Anybody who was at that cuckoo plan, they should be locked up. I do not understand how the president of the United States brought the head of the Department of Justice in, explained to him how he was about to screw him over to do a coup, and he just went back to his office like, okay, you should have called Christopher Wray right then and had the FBI at the president at the White House right then. But no. This one Bama said, I'm sorry, because this is also about, it's kind of about the politics of it as well. Pat Cipollone said that Mike Pence should get the Presidential Medal of Freedom for not going along with the coup. I'm sorry, just because you didn't commit a felony, the oath is not that I will not impede the Constitution. The oath is I will defend the Constitution. He did not, up until today, he has not shown up. He is not volunteering. Because think about this. If somebody tried to kill you and the police asked you some stuff, when you show up, like, let me tell you what the hell happened to me. This dude came through, You would come because you care about yourself and the rightness of it, but he aspires to be president of the United States and will not defend us now. That is cowardice.
Yeah, but see, that's the norm. That's the norm. That's why it's important for people, for kids. It is important for people, for especially youth. I mean, I feel it as a disservice when educators are not educating. When for me, like,
what makes you think educators can educate?
Well, that's
tell me what data you've seen, and this is the part. So you about to get me on a whole different topic.
No, I'm not getting you on a whole different. That for me, okay. So for me, I mean, I went to private school, but I also went to public school, and I didn't go to Baltimore City public schools. I went to Baltimore County. Okay, but I have family members who went to Baltimore City, and it was the seasoned teachers. It was when you remove senior teachers, and I'm talking about the senior teachers who knew how to delegate. They were the president of the United States in the classroom. I don't care if Robbie or Quandra, if Quandra was fidgety, she gave me a job. I was the person that passed out the papers. She knew how to manage, she knew how to infiltrate, and she knew how to educate their kids. She knew how to empower them and all. When you start removing the senior teachers out of this classroom, out of the system, and then you have all these young teachers who have no direction, that's wrong, because you're doing a disservice to the young teachers as well as to the kids. When you start removing seniors from out of the whole makeup, that's a problem to me, because they are the wisdom, they are the historians, they are the educators, they are the true educators. Because see, they were the ones who had to pay their dues a long time ago with that education. You know what I mean? They value that, so they would incorporate teams and they would mentor the young teachers and it was almost like creating a family. When you remove that, you do a disservice. For me, as far as politicians, yes, I do, to a point, there needs to be some term, because you get too powerful, you get too arrogant, you get too complacent.
But watch this. Term limits do not, you're talking about character issues. So one, I want to say that your whole description of the school, you literally made a very convincing argument against term limits if you just changed teacher to politician. That was awesome. You made an incredible argument against term limits in the description of teachers if you change teacher to politician, because everything you said about their growth and about them mentoring people, that's absolutely true and reason against term limits. But what we keep coming back to, what you're trying to legislate, is the heart of man, the integrity. Because what you keep coming back to is they become too powerful, they become too corrupt. You can be powerful and corrupt at any level, at any time. I think the issue is that we need to focus on the accountability for power and corruption. We need to focus, like Maryland has a reputation of just casual corruption. I mean, that's the issue.
See, but the thing is this, the city, we have to understand the dynamics. The city doesn't even own its police department. The Baltimore City Police Department is a state agency.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. It's a state agency.
Are you talking about the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services?
No, I'm talking about Baltimore City Police Department is a state agency.
Interesting.
It is a state agency. It was removed from Baltimore City because they said it was incapable of handling and running its department.
That is not the police. That is literally not the police. And I know this one because I used to be the policy analyst, the policy analyst for the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services in the General Assembly. What you're talking about, and again, I'd be very interested, is like Baltimore City Jail and the Baltimore Pre-Detention Center, BCDC, Baltimore City Detention Center. That is a state facility. It is the only local jail run by a state agency in the country. And it was done under Governor Schaefer because Baltimore was having crime issues and couldn't afford the rate that it was locking people up. And so what he did is he moved it and made it a state agency so that the state could pick up the tab. And then Martin O'Malley started doing zero tolerance, sending everybody there, and damn near bankrupted the state budget.
It says that the Maryland General Assembly reached the conclusion that the city and the mayor has proven themselves incapable of maintaining order in the city of Baltimore, and accordingly enacted public local laws making Baltimore City the General Assembly, making Baltimore City Department a state agency.
When was this? That's what I'm asking.
For over 150 years.
That's
over 150 years.
That Baltimore is not City, what I understood. I am very interested.
General Assembly. So that makes me wonder, like, every other jurisdiction owns its police department. Every other jurisdiction owns its police department. Baltimore City is a state agency. That is why Fraternal Order Police has that much power. There's no way in the world. There's no other. Yes, the Fraternal Order Police has so much power.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's not it. It is the fact that they manage the means of force. That people are scared of the police, elected officials too.
Of course. So that's something that we need to talk about in the next show. But the
I'm looking forward to it.
The Baltimore City Police Department is a state agency. That is why there are so many different things. That's why they get away with so many different things, because they're not governed by Baltimore City. They're not even owned or managed by Baltimore City. They get their laws, they get their orders from the governor. So, yes. So that's why when you sit back and talk about police brutality and all those things are, we need to get control of our city. We don't even manage. We manage, but we don't even have our Baltimore City public schools. We need to get to a place as Baltimore City, our delegation, the people that represent us. We need to get to the point to where we can manage our own schools, our own police department.
Yeah, but I know the school issue is, some of the issue is that the lack of critical infrastructure, and again, the gaslighting part. And I know we are way over time. We like 2 minutes into a whole other hour. We got to go back and do this next week. My bad.
Oh my goodness, it's been wonderful conversation. Look forward to seeing you next week at 9:00. This is Quandra Gaines from Community Connections, Resources, and Gardening. I look forward to talking to you again. Bye.
Bye.